You are now listening to Femme Regard podcast with Tessa Markle
and Carolina Alvarez.
Femme.
Welcome back, Femme Fam. Thank you guys always for listening. Welcome to our new improved season 8.
New and improved.
Yeah. So, we've changed a few things around. If you hadn't noticed already with our first episode, we're going to bring you guys a little more content of just us, but we've still got some awesome guests this season. And if you want even more content, just another reminder, as always, check out our Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/femregard. And today's guest, I'm super excited about. Her rep actually reached out to us, which is kind of exciting for me. I don't know. It makes me feel like we're pretty important, that like people's people are reaching out to us.
Love that.
Right? It's fun just to have anyone reach out to us to say, hey, I want to come on the show, because it shows us that people are listening to us that aren't just our friends and family that are, going to automatically support us anyway. So that's very
Which we love you
exciting.
guys. Thank you for always.
Yeah,
always
we love
being
all of
there.
you.
But yeah, no, we're feeling special. We're feeling important. Guys, thank you. Thank you for giving us that. Thank you for giving us that. I'm like, my words this morning. We're still bright and early. We have a long day of amazing guests to recording. This is just a glimpse into the life of the Femme girls.
Yes, 8 a.m. recording sessions. I was up at 6 a.m.
Yes.
But anyway, today's guest, we have Nicole Simone, who is a musician, singer-songwriter, and a content creator. We're going to talk to her today about her web series On a List, which is super funny, super heartfelt. Basically, I think I'm going to change my dating strategy to follow this.
Yeah. She's good. She's got a good idea there.
I'm not going to say if it works out or not, like no spoilers, but it's worth a try.
Yeah, it's on the YouTubes, as we like to say.
It's on the YouTubes, it's on the Instagrams, and you guys will get her handles and everything at the end of the episode, but we highly recommend checking it out, as well as her music. She's going to be releasing her, I want to say it's her 5th EP, Oceania. That'll be coming out soon too. And episodes are still dropping of the web series. So get in, in the beginning, get it while it's hot.
We're a big fan of finding people who didn't get started the traditional way, maybe going to film school, and like we just thought it was such a cool gap that she's a musician and now she's bridging her music with her content creation, and we were just super inspired to by her and the new approaches that she's taking. So I think you guys will really like this episode, and will hopefully leave inspired and really test out things in ways you didn't think about before.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Perfect.
Endless possibilities here.
So without further ado, our first guest of the season, Nicole Simone.
I'm a mess. I'm such a wreck.
Hey Geekscapists, with Valentine's Day around the corner, we've decided to hook you up. Geekscape has partnered with the video dating app Filter Off to bring you a free and fun video speed dating event on Saturday, February 13th. To take part, all you've got to do is download the Filter Off dating app to your smartphone. Find the Geekscape event and RSVP with the code GeeksLove2. That's TOO, because we do love to. You don't have to wait until Valentine's to use the app either. It's fun and free, and Matt Kelly has already racked up a ton of dates on it, so what have you got to lose? Download Filter Off, and we'll see you on February 13th. Geekscape forever.
Okay, so welcome, first guest of the season, Nicole Simone. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Nicole is joining us from snowy Toronto right now. So we're tuned in bright and early. It's 8 a.m. here in LA. We're just starting early, getting shit done.
Yes, queens. Hey Nicole, how's been the creative workflow for you?
It's been pretty great, I'd say. Just the last 2 years of my life have been really creative,
Aw.
and got to do a lot so far during COVID that I don't think I would have done had COVID not happened.
hmm We feel that for sure. We've talked about that on the show. It's been, sure, we've lost our day jobs, but thankfully we've, got the unemployment to help. But it's given us so much more time to do so many more creative things, like work on this podcast, work on other projects. So yeah, we feel that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like there's always that silver lining that, you can really, the God, whatever you believe in, the world, the way the universe works, I think is always going to give you what you need. And we just need to like see where the silver linings are because it's easy to get caught up in like the negative aspects of what's
yeah,
happening
there's a whole
always.
lot of negativity going on. But yeah, I've been just really creative, and just being grateful that I have the ability to create stuff and that I have an audience to watch the stuff that I do.
Yeah. And speaking of what you've created, so we're excited to talk about On a List today, which is your web series. Did you create that during COVID or was that done earlier?
It was created at the very beginning of COVID.
Okay, nice. Nice.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about it.
So I don't have a background in film and television. I've never acted before. So I was like, this is perfect. I'll do this.
Yeah.
I was dating an actor who kept saying, you should be in film and television, like you should produce, you should just try, because I've always been very interested in it.
Mhm.
And a lot of my friends are in film and television. I was like, I don't know, I don't know. So, he was like, well, why don't you produce, like help, like produce an independent film, and that he would be in it, and then
Mhm.
I would produce it. And so we started down that road. And that's when we were having meetings with directors and stuff, and nothing was really coming to fruition. Um, and this was right when COVID happened, so like the middle of March. So those
Mhm.
first couple of weeks is when I started working on this idea, and we split up, and it was fine. But then he just didn't want to do the project anymore. And so I
Mhm.
was like, well,
Ooh.
I've already put in all this work. I've come up with this idea for On a List. I'll just do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't out of like spite or anything. I was just like,
Hmm.
why not? And I had a couple of friends who were just like, just do it, see what happens. So
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
I started really I started writing the scripts in June. I cast my co-star the beginning of July, and then we went to camera the end of August.
Nice. That's the attitude to have. That's what we always preach on this show too, is just do it, whether or not you have the experience, just try it.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think my producer and director friends were so like, go do it, and my actor friends were like, you can't do that. You never acted.
Hmm.
You can't just go out there and do that. It's COVID. It's not safe. It's not that. So I mean, obviously, I had a phenomenally small crew, a phenomenally small cast of pretty
Mhm.
people. But yeah, I just put it together, and it was something that was originally going to be a short film. Then it was going to be I can't remember what it calls, but just shoot it and then to pitch it to somebody, see if they'd pick it up. And I thought, I have so many followers on Instagram who follow my music and everything already.
Mhm.
Why not just make it and put it on there? And that's what I've been doing. And it was an amazing experience. It was the most fun I had all year.
That's awesome. So talk to me a little bit about, because the link that we watched was through YouTube, I believe, right, Carolina?
Hmm.
So putting it out on Instagram, talk to us a little bit about that process, because that's something we're kind of realizing too, is like all of these social media platforms can be used for a lot more than just connecting with people and posting your pictures, but they can be actually used to put out content as well. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
What I've found in the last year, because of TikTok and the introduction of Reels, and then IGTV before that on social
Mhm.
media, is that it's basically creating a generation of filmmakers, whether they realize it or not. They're doing
Mhm.
these, TikToks where they're pretending to be different characters and they're editing back and forth. So these platforms are very much now video oriented, and people go and they sit and they watch, long form 60-second content. But I don't direct a lot of the traffic to my YouTube channel. The majority of the views I get are through Instagram. So a lot of the episodes have about like 10 to 12,000 views at this point,
Mhm.
which is great. And it's not something that I would have
Nice.
easily done through YouTube or other platforms. But definitely that social aspect of having an audience. And I always tell people, like, no matter what you do, there's an audience out there for you. It may not be
Mhm.
the same audience that goes and watches Timothy Chalamet films, and it may not be that size, but everyone who is consistent and puts out content that's authentic to them will find their audience and be
Yeah.
on social media.
Yeah. I love that. That's like very inspiring too. Like there's always an
True.
audience for you.
It's
Yeah.
true. And there's so much negativity around social media, and it's really
Mhm.
one of the greatest human inventions ever made. Period.
Mhm.
Like, could you imagine what life would have been like had we had social media during World War II? You know what I mean? Like, it's just
Yeah.
so we take it for granted, and then we get mad because they challenge our privacy rights and stuff like that. And I'm a big advocacy for data privacy, but that's a part of it. And I think that people are really negative about it, and those people are missing out on a whole new narrative. And like I said, it's just a whole new generation of not even content creators, but I genuinely think filmmakers and
Mhm.
actors are being made, because people want to bill me as an actor, and I don't feel comfortable with that because I've never acted in anything that I haven't written.
Mhm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and second to that, I feel more of a creator because I'm producing, I'm writing, I'm co-directing, and I'm starring. So it's very different than somebody who is an actor who's gone to Lambda in London and is doing all this stuff. It's a very different beast.
Yeah. I think that's interesting too. What you just said paired with what you said earlier about like your producer friends were like, oh, go do this. And your actor friends were like, no, you can't do this. You've never done it before. And it's just so funny how protective, I guess, we are as artists of that like title, quote unquote, and it's like, well, you've never acted in anything that you haven't made. So you're not really an actor because you haven't gone on auditions, which is bullshit. Like you're still acting, you're an actor.
There's a director that I was interviewing when I was still working with this other actor who the project, the project I was working on a project for it. And
Mhm.
I had approached them with the idea of on a list. And he said, it's an okay idea, but I wouldn't feel comfortable somebody like you writing it because you've never written it before. And I was like, we're all independent here. I mean,
Mhm.
as a union actor, but everyone else is independent here. And like, as Kamala Harris said, I eat no for breakfast, and I'm very much of the same mentality.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
And so when he said that, I was like, who are you? Like, you haven't, I know people who
Tessa episode title, I eat no for breakfast. Insert in this because that's so perfect.
it's
Yeah.
true, and you have to. And then the additional thing that people don't understand, I turned
Mm-hmm.
36 in March.
Mm.
Shut the fuck up. Guys, I don't know if you like, okay, when you tune into this, by the way, you and your co-star, you guys are a hot couple. Hot. Capital HOT. You look great, babe. So keep it up.
but entering the film industry at 35 years old is
It's intimidating.
it's intimidating and it's unheard of, but I don't care. Like, I
Mm.
really don't care anymore, because my background is music, and I've been doing music since I was 12, and I've been told since I was 12 years old I was too old. And I had
No, preach. That
Yeah.
is so true.
as a woman, you're told your whole life you're too old. You should have been doing something when you were 6 years old, or whatever.
Mhm.
I had a random well-known actor reach out to me on Instagram, and he watched the show, and he's like, I thought you were going to be like some like boring Instagram influencers. Like, I can act. And he's like, you can really act, but he's like, you're 35 years old. And he said, like, women are being aged out at, like, you're not even. And I said, well, I'm not going to auditions. I'm doing my own content because that's what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in going out and auditioning for commercials and stuff, because it's just not what I do. Like, I consider myself a creator, not an
Mhm.
actor. I think those are separate things. Although certainly I did act in the series. I mean, that's questionable because a lot of it.
I think you should own that you're an actor in that way. It's just I was actually talking about this with Tessa literally 2 nights ago. Like, I've kind of come to terms that auditioning doesn't fit my lifestyle, like in what I'm trying to do and pursue. And you can't help but feel like, because I am I've always been like an actor first, and when I've like gone through, like that's what I went to school for and everything. And that you carry this guilt that like Tessa just touched on it. It's like if you're not auditioning, you're not an actor, and it's like, but I feel like I'm doing so much and I'm learning so much with production, and like when I
Mhm.
get the opportunities to act, I'm doing that in my own way. So you know what? That's that's just what I have to say about that. You still are, you're a creator, and maybe you didn't, yeah, go through the traditional actor route, but you are acting. Like you're an actor.
Yeah,
You have a content, you have peace there. But I get what you're saying. It's like kind of like still a new space for you. Like you're not, that's not what you would still title yourself.
yeah. I mean, I've certainly studied a lot of actors. I'm a big fan of the actor studio, and I read bios and stuff like that. And it's interesting that, you know, there's different types of actors, but I think it's all about just making the role my own. And I think it's very hard for my audience to understand that Olivia Farron on a list is not me. Uh,
Mhm.
just like
Hmm.
the amount of hostility towards my co-star that my
Mm.
fans have.
Oh
It's
no.
harmful. And I keep saying, like, the paid actor, he's you know, he studied in acting in London. He's, you know, a West End theater actor. They don't
Mhm.
understand that. But then I think maybe I'm just doing my job and making it seem authentic and real, because
Mhm.
the way that the show was intentionally filmed was very much inspired by a California director named Drake Doremus. He's done the movies Endings, Beginnings, like crazy. And he does a lot of lets the actors improv a little bit, and almost like a voyeuristic in a way that the way that
Mhm.
his films are shot. And so I was very specific about how this would come off, because I really wanted people to feel like they were following this couple, falling in love. Like at times it almost looks like too real. Like people really struggle with the what was real and what was not real on the show.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I guess I haven't really thought about like people responding in that way, but I'm wondering if it also has to do with the fact that, you know, you had this presence already out there as a musician, you know, and then releasing it on a social media platform as opposed to like, you know, this is my movie, you guys. I mean, I'm sure you said, you know, this is the short film, whatever, whatever. But if it's just kind of that environment and the way that everyone had already perceived you, if that kind of fed into it.
Mhm. I think so. And I think that there was a very natural chemistry between my co-star and I, because we rehearsed a lot
Mhm.
um, on Zoom.
Yeah.
And we, you know, I took all of my advice from my directors, because I just didn't want it to be awkward. I didn't want the lines to be like, so you're doing a list. Yes, I'm doing a list. Like I wanted there to be kind of a natural feel to it. So we got to know each other. I think we did a couple of Zoom rehearsals, but we just like walked around a gallery one day together just to kind of get used to each other's like body language and presence,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I think that's sometimes not taken into consideration. They just kind of like know your lines and show up on set. But there was a lot of times where we would go through the set, and he would say like, well, British people actually wouldn't say that. We would say this.
Mm.
Or I would very
Mm.
much get his, you know, his opinion. I'm like, what do you think about this? So it was very collaborative in a way. And I think that because we collaborated so much in the rehearsals, and that his opinion did matter on the context. I mean, obviously I had final say, that by the time that we went to shoot, it was very easy and fun.
Yeah.
And
That's
you
so
feel that.
yeah.
Watching it, that was, like, the one thing I was like, Tessa, I was like, I feel like it was, like, really playful, witty banter, but, like, it had that natural cadence to it, it didn't feel forced.
He didn't like the idea of the improvisation. A theater actor has their lines, and he did not
Yeah.
do that at all. And so he was, I think, pretty nervous about that. But we would just do scenes and kind of take it as far as we could. The episode 2 where we get drunk, he was actually drinking, I was not. And we were just, I mean, I would say half of that episode we just improvised, and we're just having like so much fun.
That's
Is
awesome.
that it was the correct me if I'm wrong, I watched this really when we first were getting to know you. Did you throw wine in his face or something? Was that like,
Oh,
did he
that was the
anticipate
first
that? Was that a shot? That
No,
was the first
that
time?
was intentional, and we had to do that take a couple of times. That was one of the last episodes we shot of the 9 episodes that are coming out. But yeah, that wasn't improvised. There's a lot of it's a theme. I think almost every episode, like we throw food or something at each other.
Fun.
Playful. It's very, very playful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's so fun.
Yeah. And I think that's such a smart thing to do if you've got the time, especially like with a smaller cast and everything too, is to not just rehearse, because some films don't even rehearse, which blows my mind. Like at least rehearse that scene before you shoot it like once, come on. But to not only do that, but to go as far as like, I would almost call it like a chemistry rehearsal, you know, when you guys just like walked around the gallery together, like, especially because you're playing a couple, like that's so important to make sure you have that chemistry. If it's not just natural, let's build it. Let's take the time to, you know, because you can tell when it feels fake. So I
Yeah,
think that's really important.
you can definitely tell if it's fake or forced. Luckily, James and I got along really well. Very similar personalities. We're both Pisces.
Mhm.
He's actually a couple years younger than I am, so
Mhm.
but that didn't seem to make a difference. But I think the other reason was because there's so many intimacy scenes.
Mhm.
I had never done the first episode we shot was episode 2, and there was an intimacy scene. So I've acted for the first time, produced for the first time, and had my first intimacy scene all in one evening. And we didn't like practice the weren't practicing kissing or anything like that, but there was a lot of conversations. He and I are both a really big fan of this Irish TV show with Paul Mescal. Oh my god, it's escaping my mind. It's an Irish TV show, and there's a lot of intimacy scenes in it, and there was a lot of conversations about how they conducted that. And so
Other people?
normal people.
Normal people, sorry.
People.
I
It's
was telling Tess about it. It's oh my god. They captured intimacy where you're like, this is in a different way. And it was so intimate. So intimate.
so it was so
It's like sex 90% of the film.
Sounds like my kind of show.
But it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
so well done.
I've heard good things.
Yeah, I would highly recommend it. He and I both really like that show. So we had a lot of conversations about the intimacy scenes and what we were comfortable with. Because I was probably more uncomfortable with him because he had done some stuff, because he's an actor. He had done lots of different acting things. But yeah, so there was, in episode 4, there was a sex scene, and it was like, it was funny because, it was like choreographing a fight almost in a way. I'm like, here, I'm gonna go here.
I love that comparison.
I'm gonna take your top off. We're gonna fall backwards. You're gonna roll over, and and like making sure my my hair doesn't cover, his face, and that,
Wow.
and that we both reviewed the footage after to make sure there was nothing that we felt uncomfortable with. I thought it was like really beautifully shot, and the way my editor Mike Donis edited it too is just really, really great. And unfortunately, it upset people. My fans were just like, I can't believe you did that. Like, I'm like, it's not real. Like, that's not,
Right.
that's the weird thing here, is just people not realizing that it's not real. Like, this is pretend. He's a paid actor. We were never like, I think people thought like James was my boyfriend. I was like, let's go make the show. No, I didn't know him at all. I met him through Mandy.com. And he was the only British person who had applied to the show. And there's so much about British Anglo stuff on the show that I did have guys audition to doing fake British accents, and it was horrifying. It was horrifying because people don't realize that England has so many different dialects, like really different dialects. And so when a lot of North Americans do a British accent, they kind of amalgamate it into this one really bad accent.
Oh my God.
It just happened to be that he was the only British person that had applied, and it took a while to track him down because he was at some cottage or something up north, and he happened to be really talented, kind, and incredibly good looking, which all lent. I really felt like he embodied everything that character was.
Yeah. That's awesome that you found him. Like when you find the right person for a role, it's just so like, you're like, how was this so perfect?
Yeah, it was really fortuitous. And I just finished casting for season 2, and I took a totally different approach to it. In terms of, I cast somebody off of TikTok who's never acted before, but I think has a lot of potential. And so we're in the process of going through rehearsals and going through all of that. So it's a bit different, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to just try, people who are kind of similar to me in the way that I don't have the acting background, but I have the, tenacity and interest in doing it. So
Yeah. I love that. It's such a fine line too, with like, I'm just going to use the term influencers, even though I kind of really hate that word, but because, sometimes, yes, they're getting cast purely because they have millions of followers and they can't even actually act, sure, that's one case. But then you also have people, like that person on TikTok that isn't maybe an actor, but is actually really good at it. And they're just doing it for fun, but like, here's their chance, and it gives them that opportunity that they wouldn't normally have otherwise. So it's a fine line, because you have things on both sides, but I do think that that's really awesome that that's something that is happening now. It's giving people that chance.
Hey everybody, I'm Chris Fafalius, and I'm the producer of Krista Makes a Podcast and the host of the One Hit Thunder podcast.
And I'm Matt Kelly, host of Horror Movie Night and the producer / the head of content for the Geekscape Podcasting Network.
Between the two of us, we have, believe it or not, 25 years of podcasting experience, and we want to help you start your own podcast.
We know podcasting, and we want to share that knowledge with you.
So whether you're new to podcasting or you want some feedback on your currently active podcast, we want to help.
Or perhaps you're just overwhelmed with all of the editing work. Well, we can help you with that also.
You can contact us at info@weknowpodcasting.com for more information.
We're excited to help your podcasting dreams become a reality.
There's so much opportunity, and I understand. Even like I was talking to somebody who's a professional model, and they were saying, "Oh, we're only getting booked on how many, Instagram, followers or whoever we have." And I said, "Well, you should focus on that. Then that's a part of your job now." And they don't want to because, that's not how it used to be. And it's everything is different now. The world has changed, and people in the 30s, actors had this thing, well, I don't want to talk on film. I've always done, silent films. And there's just always this transition that happens. And yeah, so I mean, I'd been following this person, and I slid into his DMs, and I was just like, I think you're really funny and talented. Have you ever considered doing this? And he was like, no, but he was totally down for it, and he liked the show. And so So we'll see how it goes, because we're currently rehearsing. I'm writing season 2 because I'd like to film it this summer.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean, it's a totally different approach, and I know that some of like my Hollywood friends are like, oh, it's so like gauche, but you saying like influencer being a negative word, and I've always strayed away from that as well. I don't do any direct influencer work in terms of like brand sponsorships or anything right now. But I realize that there's a real misogynistic context to why people hate influencers. It's like, oh, these women who create all this content on their own, and they're beautiful in their own way. They're all individual, but beautiful in their own way, and they're making money doing it. How dare they? That's disgusting. There's a misogynistic tone to it that men really hate influencers because of that, and you don't get the same issues with male influencers, but it's always the woman influencers who get accosted for making their own living.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never really thought about it that way, but you were totally right.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I was gonna say thanks for preaching that, because I never thought of it that way myself.
And if you, I mean, you're in LA, I'm sure a couple of influencers. They work hard. Like,
oh yeah, I have a huge fan of one for sure, and she is constantly editing like day and night, trying to keep up and like show
Mhm.
everyone her world and everything that she's doing.
Yeah, and
It's a lot of
a lot of
work.
work, and
Yeah.
you're putting yourself out there for criticism. And I started my Instagram account 2 years ago, this month, and it's gone from 0 to I should be getting to like 250,000 by March, which is great. I don't put a ton of work into it, but I think when you're authentic in any creative pursuit that you do, that
Mhm.
people will recognize that and will connect to it. If I was just, posting stuff and saying like feeling cute, might take this down later, I don't think I would have the same reaction. Like, sure, my demographic is 93% men,
Mhm.
93% men. I
Wow.
don't seem to connect to a woman demographic. However, I'm also don't really get harassed in the same way. Like, guys are, instead of sending me, dick pics, they're sending me like playlists and
Yeah.
movies and stuff like that. So it's interesting that it's all my followers are all these American men who recognize that I'm a big David Lynch fan, or if they see a Tom Waits thing, they know to send it to me. But
Aw.
you build an audience, and you do get authentic fans, and those fans champion you. And
Mhm.
I've talked to many a Hollywood actor who has, made it at some place, had a big movie, a big TV show, and they feel completely stalled out in their career. And I said, do you have fans? Like, do you have fan accounts? And they said, yeah, they're annoying, they're embarrassing. And I said, those people are going to champion your career for the rest of your career. So whatever you do, like treat your fans well. You don't have to treat,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean treat everyone who doesn't, because trust me, there's lots of weirdos out there. Somebody called me like a feminazi the other day for posting a Kurt Vonnegut quote. I don't know. I can't keep up. But you treat your fans well. And it might just be, two core people who are constantly posting about your stuff. That's incredibly valuable.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think that people who have seen success take that for granted. Um, and I think that you have to kind of get over yourself, that you're just kind of beginning again and again and again with any creative pursuit that you do, no matter what level of success that you've had.
Yeah.
Everything is temporary. So you gotta keep going, and be happy with what you're doing. For me, I love the process. I'm so excited to work with the new people on season 2. It was just such an exciting process to be in the moment, and
Mhm.
Mhm.
scout locations and do stuff. I'm just hoping that I can do a little less so I can focus a little more on acting, because I was doing everyone's wardrobe, makeup, location scouting, COVID waivers. Like, I was doing everything across the board.
Yeah.
We flew in one director who directed the first half of the season from Fort McMurray, Alberta, which is like north of near Edmonton. Sorry.
Mhm.
And so it was a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it.
And how long did the whole thing take from start to finish?
So I started kind of working on the idea in May, and then it was almost like I needed somebody to give me permission to say, like, you can go ahead and write that script, just because that director said
Mhm.
that you shouldn't. You should. So I started writing it
Yeah, that's hard.
on cell text.
Mhm.
We love cell
Yeah,
text.
started writing it on cell text in June, and then cast James at the beginning of July. Started working. We rehearsed about once a week on Zoom, and then in the middle of it, I had surgery in August, and then
Oh,
2
wow.
weeks after surgery, at the end of August, we started filming. So we filmed, I think, 4 days in a row. Then we filmed about 3 days in a row in September, and then 3 or 4 days in October. And then we didn't get
Okay.
to do the one episode. There's one episode that's missing, and we didn't get to do because the second wave happened, and I didn't feel safe.
Mhm.
Getting
Yeah.
people together, or being in close proximity with my co-star. Again, lovely person, but I just didn't feel safe anymore with the
Mhm.
Mhm.
rates of COVID going up. So, but yeah, that was pretty much it.
So like
Nice.
about a 6 to 9 month full from the birth to filming, almost
It's like
sounds like.
June, July, August, September, October, about closer to 4 or 5 months.
Mhm.
And remind me how, and yeah, which by the way, that's like Amazing. I'm just like reiterating that because that's amazing for a series to like, from development, you just went up and ran with it like the entire time. And, some people who are actually like writers, producers would spend even maybe a year trying to concept, and everyone has their own approach. Take the time you need, like, but I think me and Tessa's new favorite thing is like being precious, but not too precious about things. You just, at the end of the day, you're going to learn and be inspired when you're even in the middle of the shoot. And, maybe you want a little improv there, and it's just going to all continue to flow as long as you have like, the groundwork done, I think. And, rooted, you guys were already rooted in your characters. So it makes sense. Like, that's really awesome.
Yeah. So I would love for you to just tell our listeners a little bit about what the show's about, because, we've been saying like, oh, it's great, we love your acting and everything, but they don't know what it's really even about. So if you can just give them a little kind of synopsis.
On a List is about a woman who creates a list to kind of fast track through dating by creating situations that would make people very vulnerable, and kind of cut to the chase whether they could get through things together. So that ranges from anything from intentionally getting food poisoning together and going through that to like, dancing together to what were some of the other ones? I'm just totally blanking out right now. Getting drunk and interviewing each other. So all these things that could, potentially create red flags in a relationship. She kind of fast tracks and she meets this guy from England who's kind of down to try it. And in the process, they start to fall in love.
Fun. I feel like maybe I should start dating like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's, it was loosely inspired by a card game called We're Not Really Strangers.
Okay.
Highly recommend that. Do that on a second date.
I love games.
Yeah.
Fun.
It's like an interview game. It's kind of like, it goes through different levels of perception. And so, you kind of just want to like fast track by the time you're in your like for me, by the time I'm in my mid-30s, I've gone through relationships. I've been married and divorced once. I just don't have the time to mess around. And so, I was talking to somebody, I was talking to a guy, and, it was going okay. And I said, well, tell me something about yourself. And he was like, I'm not an open book. I take time to open up. It's just like, okay, I'm asking to tell me something about yourself. I'm not asking to tell me like your darkest, fear.
Right.
But another friend of mine had joked that he said in his 40s when he started dating again, it was kind of like you go for dates and it's like, all right, so what's your credit score? I need 3 references from your ex-girlfriends. I need to know what your relationship is like with your mother. Do you own any property? How many properties do you own? What,
Yeah.
kind of to that extreme. And so I think the important things that people, miss out are is the ability for somebody to be vulnerable with you and be emotionally available. And I think that's what Olivia is looking for with Harry on a list. And it's interesting to see how they both open up or shut down as the series goes along. And certainly, British people are known for repressing their feelings. So there's kind of this added element of somebody very much begrudgingly going along with this in James's character as Harry.
Fun. I like it. I'm excited for season 2.
Yeah. I'm working out. I'm still in post-production for season 1. We're editing the episodes as they're being released. So every 2 weeks we've been releasing an episode. So I think the series should wrap the end of March, which is basically where it started last year. So good on me.
Nice.
Stay on this.
That's perfect. Well, before we wrap up, I do want to talk about your music career as well, because, this is a film-centric podcast, but you're a professional musician and I want to hear about it. We were listening to you before you came on today. Very kind of Lana Del Rey vibes, I get, in the sound. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about, like, you said you've been doing it since you were 12 and just kind of your journey with it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally did not mention that all of the music on a List is mine. So
nice.
So not only is it like, did I write it? It also has my music, and it feels, when I was doing the credits, I was trying to figure out a way on the show to not sound like Tommy Wiseau from The Room. Because that was definitely a concern. But I got to use I got to go through like 10 years of music and just kind of pick and kind of re-release things and bring them up. I do have an album that's coming out soon that's been delayed by some production details. It's called Oceania. And it's very much a whimsical type of album. You know, I work with a lot of like orchestral arrangements. It's always been really important to me. And just it's about, you know, being in a relationship situationship between three different countries, three different coasts. So there's a lot of like tri-coastal vibe to it, and just kind of, you know, I guess finding a way through that.
I love that. I'm excited to listen to it. And since we've been talking a lot about platforms, are you kind of just going the traditional route of releasing it? Or are you doing a lot more like, you know, Bandcamp, Spotify, all those different platforms? What's your plan?
The way that you release music now is you use, you know, DistroKid or TuneCore, and they distribute it to dozens and dozens of platforms for just a single fee once a year, which is, it's not a lot of money. So distribution is totally different than what it is. I'm not touring or playing shows. I've never been a touring artist. Honestly, my main motivation is just to have music to go into the film projects right now. So,
which is awesome. Love that.
Yeah.
You get to combine both passions, you know, which is awesome.
Yeah. And so that it kind of melds together. It also saves me a ton of money from, you know, I would love to work with a proper composer one day and maybe compose music specifically for film. But it's been great that people have been discovering my music through the show. I think most people forget that the music is mine on the show, but it's fine. I'm not going to point it out every time. But yeah, it's my musical influences have always been very much cinematic. So I think it's very complementary. And I also just don't know anyone who's doing what I do and how I do it. But like I said, we just live in a new age, and there's just so many opportunities to find an audience in different ways. You don't have to go and be conventional anymore.
I agree. And I love that. And it's great for our listeners to get inspired with that message. You know, you can really make it your own way. And thank you for sharing your way and being so open and like letting us know the little, you know, even the little roadblocks that you had to go through with people telling you, no, this doesn't work. This isn't the right way. Or your fans kind of like having to go on this journey and learn what you're doing too. And it sounds like it's still a work in progress for them to understand, like you're this creator as well now. And that's a beautiful journey. I hope it continues to grow for you.
Thank you. Yeah. Being able to show the behind the scenes through social media just also helps you build that audience. So it's I think my advice to anyone out there who's thinking about doing that creative project that they've been thinking about do it and know that it might turn out completely different than what you thought it would. But it's a starting point, in that no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, where you're from, there is an audience out there for you now where there wasn't 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. You know, don't be afraid of the new platforms. Don't be afraid of new technology. And just kind of find your authentic self and put it out there, because people want to know you.
Yeah.
So I really love that. And I love it. You've said it now, like I keep wanting to bring it up. So I am, you keep saying, being authentic. And I think that is a word that, you know, we can easily glaze over, like, yeah, authentic. But I think that's why, like, I myself have struggled with starting a TikTok account, because at the moment, the idea of me like doing what other people have been doing isn't authentic to me. Like it would just feel like forced, if that makes sense.
Yep.
but then I know like myself, I'm like, but you're a creator, like you can find your own authentic way of doing it. And that's the whole point, like, is to use that technology and make it authentic to you.
Yeah,
And then that's when you'll get, noticed if that's, the platform you want to keep growing
yeah,
on.
you people will connect with you, and it might be only a couple people at first, but I think if you're being authentic, and in order to be authentic, I always go back to the Writer's Way by Julia Cameron, where she talked about how a lot of people's interests before the age of 8 are their core authentic interests for the rest of their life. And mine is animals, music, and movies. And I run a dog charity. I make music and I make film. So that's not a surprise to me. So, I urge people that if they're struggling to find their authentic self, to kind of look back to their childhood, kind of look back to what really, sparks a lot of happiness in them, and just stick to that and remember that that makes you happy. And just manage your expectations that this stuff builds over time. Nobody starts on social media as a nobody and goes 0 to, whatever 100,000 followers. But I think it's all a discovery process. So if you make that time every day and you say, okay, at 2:00 every day, I'm going to make a TikTok no matter what.
Mhm.
You do that for 6 months, you commit 6 months to a year, I think you'd be very surprised at where you end up.
Nicole inspiring me. I love
Seriously,
that.
go out and do it. It's just, and there's just so many people who are going to be negative, and I'm sorry, but actors are
Mhm.
some of the worst people for that, because they're so used to being criticized that they just project that
Mhm.
onto people who make them feel like, when you shine a bright light, it causes people to see their shadows. Just remember that. When anytime you
Mhm.
get some
Yeah.
negativity because you're doing something well, it's because you're showing people what they're capable of and what they're choosing not to do. Not to get
I
too deep,
love
but
that.
that's really important.
No, I love the deep. Spill
Yeah.
that tea. That's what we're about here, girl. That is so true. And I think again, it's just like anyone who's struggling with that, like I hope you find that as a positive approach, like, and you got to just like, why am I struggling with this one thing? Like, be real with yourself. And if you're just scared to do it, which it is, it's scary to put yourself out there on a platform sometime and be like, am I just an idiot? You're like, you can't you can't think that way with anything,
No,
with your writing, with whatever. I mean, you're only going to get better as you continue to do it.
yeah, so
So,
just put yourself out there and just remember that, 10 years ago you couldn't do what we can do today. There's so much opportunity. And so the sooner you get in on it, the sooner you're gonna see some really remarkable things happen in your life. So
Awesome. Well, I want our
yes.
listeners to be able to find you, but I have one more question before we get into that stuff. For you as a musician who writes kind of, very cinematic music, if somebody wanted to use one of your songs in their short film, for instance, how would they go about doing that? Because, music licensing is like a whole thing. We've done like an episode and a half on it at this point, but, you being like, obviously you're still a professional musician, but you're like a more accessible, I guess I would say, musician than, like Fleetwood Mac or something like that. So how would someone go about that process?
I would just email me. I'm accessible. My email's on my Instagram. Instagram message me. And just, and that goes for any music that you're interested in. Go through bandcamp.com. There's lots of amazing artists out there. Try to offer,
That's awesome.
you know,
I'll
try to offer
definitely look at
something,
that.
like, sometimes people offer like $20, or you offer to credit you, in the film or something like that. But just be polite and just kind of, be genuine. Cause I get people contacting me all the time for different stuff. And sometimes it's really like flaky, but sometimes it's really authentic and sincere. And just be like, hey, I'm like really passionate about this, short film that I'm making. I would love to include women in music in the film. I don't have a budget. Would you be interested in collaborating on it? And more often than not, you'll probably hear yes from people.
Mm-hmm.
But just, always shoot your shot. You can always slide into somebody's DMs. You can always reach out to them through their website. And so if anyone was interested in using my music, that's how they would get a hold of me. But just, but explain what your film is about, and explain,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm also very cautious. Like, sure, you could use my film, and it turns out it's like a QAnon film.
Right.
QAnon film. So that's where I'm always cautious. But yeah, just shoot your shot. It does get complicated with things like YouTube and licensing as well. But yeah, just ask. And it's the same for, other actors and other creators. You'd be surprised at how many people would be interested if you just ask.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. So if our listeners want to follow you both as a musician and as a creator, and they want to watch the series and they want to hear your music and all of that, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram at late.July. I'm on TikTok, Late July, and Twitter, Nicole Simone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on today. This was super inspiring, and I'm really excited to hear your new EP coming out and see more of the series as it comes out. So yeah, listeners, keep an eye open for her. She's very talented.
Thanks for listening to Femme Regard Podcast. If you like what you hear, tune in every Friday for more tips on the filmmaking business and insightful conversations with industry professionals.
We can only grow with your support, so please subscribe, share, rate, and review. You can also join the Femme Fam on Patreon. For more on us, check us out at femregard.com.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.